And we are live. It's Friday night, 5 o'clock. Hoping, part of my New Year's goals for 2021, to make this a regular gig so you can expect, hey, it's Friday night. It's 5 o'clock Pacific time. Time for Erik Wait to go live. That's probably one of the most important things about going live is you're consistent, regular, you're hitting your time spot on your particular day, right? So then people, whether you've announced it or not, they know, hey, it's Friday, end of a long work week. Erik's going live. Let's open a bottle. Let's pour ourselves something and go live. Now that the holidays are over, no longer wearing the Santa Claus hat, and we can open up with a little bit of rock and roll. All righty, so a couple things. We're continuing with our series on peated whiskeys. Got my little friend here, Grogu, also known as Baby Yoda. He was in that video I did. There was you only need 5 whiskeys, short story. Put him in there. So anyway, this was sort of my Christmas present to myself, I guess. But he's feeling a little bit hungover, so I'm going to put him off to the side and get him off camera. He needs to take a little nap. He just partied a little too hard last night. I want to say hello to everyone who is tuning in. Wheels, Michael Bennett, thank you much for tuning in. Jack White, thank you much for tuning in. And Michael C. 2019. Let me pour myself a couple. So I have here on my left, this is the Ballechin 12-year-old Burgundy Cask matured. It was distilled on 26th of October, 2005, bottled on 17th of July, 2018. Cask number 316, outturn of 262 bottles. So only available at this particular store in Illinois, the Vine and Table Harbor. They are apparently, it's sold out, so they don't have any more. But as I mentioned in the video, in my review of this whiskey, if you haven't seen it already, there are a number of other stores that are doing these special bottlings of Burgundy Cask peated Ballechin's. They might be a 12-year-old, there might be a 13-year-old. So, and I'm sure it's not going to be exact same, but I'm sure they're going to be fairly consistent. Yeah, one might be better than the other. But if you, hey, Jason Whiskey Wise, hey, how you doing, man? Wow, it's got to be like 1 o'clock your time. Thanks for tuning in. For those of you who don't know Jason Whiskey Wise, Jason, we met up in, Al, hey, how you doing? Whiskey Straight Al over in Ireland. Thank you much for tuning in. So Jason and I met up in London. He was sort of my tour guide a couple of years ago. Gentleman showed me around, introduced me to what is now my favorite bar in the entire planet, which is Milroy's. And so Jason, although I don't think he's done his reveal video, he was sort of not producing videos for a while, working for the Whiskey Exchange, and now he's back to doing whiskey reviews, and was recently doing a series on Glenfarclas. So if you guys aren't familiar with Jason Whiskey Wise, check him out. Really, really, really good viewer. I really like his descriptors. He's sort of no nonsense, to the point. He's going to give you some tidbits and stuff to learn. So definitely check out Jason Whiskey Wise, and of course Whiskey Straight Al over there in Ireland as well. And I've had Whiskey Straight Al on my channel, and I've had Jason on my channel as well. Ooh, that is nice. That is nice. Now, this other bottle, this is the Bunnahabhain. It's a 9-year-old. They don't date it as a 9-year-old, but down below it says, real hard print. In the first of our Isla malts, we have fully matured our Moine in Bordeaux red wine cask for 9 years. And this is bottled at 58.1. This is 58.1. So these are both cask strength, and this one's at 50, if I recall, 57. Yeah, 57.5. So basically, 2 red wine casks. This one's Bordeaux. This one's Burgundy. And one's a mainland peat, and the other one is a mainland Highland peat, and the other one is an Isla peat. Now, what's the difference between both red wine, Burgundy and Bordeaux? Burgundy, if you're talking red wine, you're talking Pinot Noir. That's it. That's the only red grape in Pinot Noir. Is Pinot Noir. Predominantly, most of the white grapes in Burgundy is going to be Chardonnay. The southern end of the Burgundy region, which would be excuse me, Beaujolais would be a Gamay, But when they talk red Burgundy, they're not talking Gamay. They're talking Pinot Noir. Now, I haven't done enough side-by-side testing yet. I mean, generally, I think I could pick up red wine notes in whether, say, like a Longrow red or Glenmorangie. I can pick up that it's a red wine, but there's no way in the world I've ever been able to get anywhere close to figure out what kind of grape it is. Or, of course, the Ardbeg Black was also done in a Pinot Noir cask. I would never, in a million years, guess that it was Pinot Noir cask. Now, what I could have done, if I had been really thinking about it, I should have gone Ardbeg Black, because it's Pinot Noir cask, up against a Ballechin. In fact, maybe I'll pull down a bottle if I feel like it. But in terms of the character of the whiskey, forget what grape they use, I kind of felt these were closer together in terms of overall profile. So it was more of a what it smells and tastes like rather than what particular grape they used. But I'll be honest with you, this is just an excuse to drink some absolutely fantastic whiskeys and talk a little bit more about peat. Hey, Jimmy Jazz, thank you for tuning in. Yeah, so this week I've been on vacation this all week. My office shuts down for the holidays, which has been really, really nice. Monday, go back into work. So we're back into studying about peat. If you didn't see my previous videos from the live streams, I've not just been doing head-to-heads with a mainland peat versus an Islay peat, but I've been doing these little like quizzes. But it's really more, not to test you guys, but really more of something to use as a springboard for a conversation, all right, and to get us to think. Really, I think the best thing that quizzes or tests can be used is for obtaining knowledge rather than testing your knowledge, because it's what you don't get right that you tend to remember on a quiz or a test. So that's really what they're about, and just to have some fun. I like to put at least one silly answer in there. Now, what these both have in common, there's a sweet note. Obviously, there's some well-integrated smoke, peat note. They both have this similarity of the sort of a chocolate-covered cherry, which is typically what I get as sort of a flag for a red wine cask. And let's state the obvious. Look at the color on that. See how it's got that red tinge? Especially if I put it like this. Look at that red tinge, right? So that's the Ballechin. It almost looks like the way some root beers can look. See how it's got that there's a slight red tinge. I don't know how well it comes across. Looks like it's coming across pretty. There's a slight red tinge to that. And that pretty much looks like, I mean, just visually, it looks like a red wine cask. Hey, Dirty Dog, thank you much for tuning in. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to 21. Very, very similar. One key thing, there's a little more saltiness going on here with the Bunnahabhain. Jason says, Eric, does the Ballechin a single cask? And if so, what's the cask number? Yes, it's a cask number 316 and only 262 bottles. It's a single cask. So the Ballechin 12-year-old, this is a bottle I got via Mark of Scotch for Dummies. A couple years ago, flew out to Indiana. They had a Highland Park dinner at the restaurant where Sean was working. So we tasted a number of different Highland Parks. And then we went and hung out at the in-house bar at Sean's house. And so they gave me some samples to take home. One of them was a sample of this whiskey. So when I got home and tasted it, I was like, wow, man, that is an absolutely fantastic whiskey. So I contacted Mark, said, hey, Mark, can you get me one of those or two of those? And sure enough, he did. So he was able to give me 2 bottles. So I've got it. This one is, I'm probably going to put this into smaller bottles and empty this one. And then I've got another one in the reserve. So because I don't want to get overly oxidized, so I'll probably break that down into sample bottles. Both have that chocolate-covered cherry note. I would say The Bunnahabhain is a little bit more of the savory note in terms of spice, like a barbecue rub. I'm getting a little bit more of that. But, or imagine if you had a rub that you put more salt than you did with the other one, because they both have that similar characteristic. That's what I said. I would never in a million years go, oh, yes, this is a Bordeaux cask, and this is a Pinot Noir cask. No. Calling it a Bordeaux cask is a little too general. There are 5 grapes that can go, or typically go into a Bordeaux. You have the Gironde estuary, which goes between the east bank and the west bank, or the right bank and the left bank. On the west bank or the left bank, predominantly more Cabernet Sauvignon. Right bank, a little bit more Merlot. But they both have Cabernet and Merlot. So Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot, Malbec. Oh, and very rarely is Carmenere. Carmenere is kind of rare because during phylloxera in the late 1800s, it basically sort of wiped it out. In fact, Carmenere probably would be extinct, except for the fact that Carmenere got planted down in Argentina. And so they had planted Carmenere down in Argentina. I know I'm going into wines. Down in Argentina, they thought it was basically extinct, and then they found out something they had labeled Merlot in Argentina turned out to be actually Carmenere. So it's very, very similar, although it ripens differently than Merlot. So there are a few chateaux that are bringing Carmenere back in Bordeaux. So when you say Bordeaux, what grape are you talking about? Could be a number of different grapes. Could be more Merlot based. It could, if you're going right bank, it could be a little bit more Merlot based. We don't know. They don't get that specific. Both really, really nice. All right. Dram Bam. Thank you, ma'am. How you doing? Happy New Year, Mr. Wait. Erik is good enough. Erik with a K, spelled with a K. Have a great one and keep up. Thank you for all the knowledge always. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to take a little sip, and then we're going to start on our first little quiz question. All righty. Damn. That is good. All right. So the numbering, we're not starting off with number one because number one was several videos ago. So I'm keeping these in order. Eventually, I will probably take all these slides and put them into one video. I might make it a shorts video. So I'll keep all these slides and eventually I'll put them onto one video. It's just sort of a study video. Now, I might put it into a shorts, but we'll see how it goes. All right. The first question is peat quiz. Question number 8. On Orkney, after peat is cut, it is laid out to dry in stacks called A, moine, B, turf pyramids, C, cask Vic. Oh, it looks like Bahik, but I think that'd be pronounced Vic. Which is Gaelic for little feet, or D, heaping pile of shite. Heaping pile of shite. So, is it called? All right, I want to see some answers here. Is a stack? You see the stack there? Is a stack of peat? Do they call that moine? Do they call it turf pyramids? Do they call it cask Vic? Jason Whiskey Wise, that's his monkey in there. Yeah, Mr. Oh man, I forgot the name of the monkey. Mr. Oh man, what is the name of the monkey? Mr. I forgot the name of the monkey. Anyway, C, cask Vic, or D, heaping pile of shite. Heaping pile of shite. Mr. Bananas, that's right. I'm sorry, man, I can't believe that. Well, it's been a while, and I haven't seen Mr. Bananas. I don't think so in your more recent videos. Jack White says D, heaping pile of shite. All right. So what is the answer? Jason said D, heaping pile of shite. Okay, come on, guys. Richard Amaro, how you doing, man? Thank you for tuning in. So what is that stack, that pyramid of peat called? So basically, after they cut the peat, it has to dry out, which can be quite a challenge on Isla because of the rain. So, and it can take a couple months. So they cut the peat, they stack it up, and then hopefully within a couple months it dries out. And then once it dries out, they bring it back to the malting house or the distillery, depending on whether it's a malting house that's using it or whether a distillery. All right, so here is the answer. And the answer is, on Orkney, after peat is cut, it is laid out to dry in stacks called, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right, I think BH together in Gaelic it's pronounced like a V. I'm guessing the CAS is Cass, but who knows? It's hard to find out what the pronunciation is. So the answer is C. So if you answered C, you got it correct. You got it correct. It may look like D, a pile of shite, but it's C, however you want to pronounce that. Wow. Absolutely spectacular. I think, although it would be very, very expensive, I think the Bunnahabhain, this is somewhat relative, is more available than this is. I mean, even the store that I got this from is now sold out, although they have a lot of other, apparently they have a lot of other whiskeys. So, yeah, I don't know how you pronounce that. Cask Vic. So, I'll give you the short answer to this, or a long answer to this. So we know Bunnahabhain likes to name a lot of their whiskeys with Gaelic words. Everybody knows, we all know, Gaelic is another language used over there in Scotland. There's a Gaelic over there in Ireland as well. I guess they're related, but slightly different. Why do you think? I mean, there's no way in the world you're going to be able to answer this in a little chat thing there. I mean, even if you do know, it's a lot to talk about. Why are they so big on using words that the average consumer, even those in Scotland, might not be sure how they can pronounce? I mean, from a marketing standpoint, from a business standpoint, why would you want to name something with a Gaelic word that people aren't going to know how to pronounce? You know, before I went over to Scotland, I thought wrongly, because you don't ever hear, at least here in the United States, of anyone speaking Gaelic. You can meet people speak Japanese, Russian, Chinese, Spanish, German, Dutch, you name it, and you can find people here who speak that language. You are never going to meet anyone, unless they're hiding out somewhere, speaks Gaelic. It's never going to be offered as a language you can learn. If you're looking at alternative translations for things, use Google Translator. You're not going to find Gaelic as an option for translating using Google Translator. So why would they be using Gaelic? This is a little cultural issue on Scotland. Why would they use so emphasis on Gaelic? So when I went over to Scotland, once you get out of Glasgow and Edinburgh, or probably even away from Aberdeen, those are the three largest cities: Glasgow, Edinburgh, and Aberdeen. Edinburgh is the largest, then Glasgow, and then Aberdeen. Once you get away from those cities and you head out into the countryside, you start hearing Gaelic. You start seeing signs in Gaelic. If you get on a ferry to go over to Arran or over to Orkney or over to Islay or over to Jura, you're going to hear, they have these standard sort of safety videos. Welcome aboard. In case there's an emergency, the life rafts are available over here. Listen to the instructions of the captain. Kind of like when you get on an airplane, Well, they'll make the announcement in English, and then they make the announcement in Gaelic. Now, you can tell me there are no Gaelic speakers over there who don't also speak English. Why put everything in Gaelic? Why label things that the general public aren't going to be able to speak in Gaelic? Well, here's the reason why. I'm taking another sip. Here's the reason why. I could give you a long history. I could give a whole long lecture. It's getting a little warmer. I got the heater on. If you're going to conquer a country, there's a history behind this. If you're going to conquer a country, there's several things you want to do to conquer the country in the old days. Number one, when you invade the land, you want to cut them off from the land. Land is their inheritance. Inheritance is through the family name. So you are, whatever your name is, son of so-and-so, of this clan or of this tribe. Okay, this is how it's been. This is how it was for thousands of years. So the importance of maintaining a genealogy was you knew who you were, what clan, what tribe you belonged to, who your father was, and where the inheritance was. And if you were the firstborn, you usually got the majority of the inheritance. That was true even in France until Napoleon. I know we're getting way some deep history here. So if you're going to invade and take over and you want to disrupt the culture, you're going to screw up the inheritance. You want to screw up the inheritance. And the way you do that is something called prima nocta. Prima nocta. If you don't know what that is, Google it. Basically, the person in power, when someone got married, they would be the first one to boink the bride so that when you had a child, you didn't know if it was yours. Right? So the invading people would boink the bride so that you didn't know. You see this in movies, but they don't explain this. You might have seen this in, what was a movie with Mel Gibson? Freedom. Okay, I put the title. You know what I'm referring to, right? So that's the number one thing. So you want to screw up the inheritance so they don't know who owns the land. So you don't really share of the bloodlines. So that's one thing. Number two is Braveheart. Thank you very much. Sorry, I drew a blank on that one. Braveheart, right. So the second thing you want to do is disrupt the language. Disrupt the language. When the nation of Israel was taken captive by the Assyrians, and then they were under the Babylonians, and then the Persians, then the Greeks, and then go into the first century under the Romans. And not too long after, during the time of Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar, Hebrew was no longer the common language. Aramaic, which is a cognate of Hebrew, became the dominant language. By the time you have the Greeks and the Romans, even that wasn't the common language. It was Greek. The result was, in order to read the Hebrew Bible, the Torah, it had to get translated into Greek, and so they came up with something called the Septuagint. Now, I'm not trying to get religious on you. I'm just let's talk about language. So you want to screw up the inheritance, they're tied to the land, and screw up their language. That's the second cultural thing. Screw up their language, right? Third thing, and I'm going to cut this short, besides the language, is their traditions. Their holidays, their festivals, the clothes they wear, the music they play, the holidays they celebrate, all those things which define the culture, right, in terms of festive. So you screw that up. So, for example, the nation of Israel, they weren't allowed to remain kosher. They forbade them from maintaining circumcision, which was a rite within Judaism, and so on and so forth, right? Well, this same thing, to get back to the topic at hand, I'm taking another sip. This same thing happened with the Scots, right? When I went over to Scotland, not only was I visiting distilleries, but I got inspired to want to know more about the history of Scotland, ancient history, going all the way back to the founding of the Standing Stones back 5,000 years. Became really interested in the culture, history, and so I started watching videos and reading things on Scotland to get more in depth of the culture behind Scottish whiskey. And so when they got invaded by the Brits, even today, there are still, you go into a bar and you mention the crown, right? The British crown. There are Scots. They'll get, same thing with the Irish, and same thing with the Irish. They have this long animosity, not everyone, but towards the Scots, right? There's Scott. If a Scot lives in England and he marries someone who's English, it may very well be that the English wife does not want to go with that Scottish husband back into Scotland because of the animosity towards England. It still remains, and the reason why is because this sort of taking dominion over the Scots, this ruling over the Scots, the mistreating of the Scots goes all the way back. And so one of the ways in which they disrupted the Scottish culture was to forbid the language. And so they would send school teachers into Scotland to run the schools to teach the Scottish children English and forbid them to speak Gaelic. you had a school teacher, and if the kid spoke in Gaelic and not in English, they'd smack the back of their hand, right? They were punished. And so consequently, Gaelic became an underground language. It became an underground language in a sense. So modern times, wanting to preserve their heritage, to revive a part of this heritage and their language, you have the BBC has a Gaelic station. So when I was up in Scotland, I stayed at a hotel. Even if I don't understand a word they're saying, I would tune in to the Gaelic BBC and listen and watch television. And of course, you can have subtitles. And I would watch Scottish Gaelic television. And a lot of the stuff they put on Gaelic television, they're not doing game shows. They're not doing sitcoms on Gaelic BBC. A lot of the content is actually stuff which is designed to remind people of their heritage and their history on the Gaelic station. And that's primarily they're not doing game shows. Let's spin the wheel or something like that. No. It's the purpose is to try to maintain and revive a little bit of the heritage. Remember where we came from. Remember the language that we lost under the dominion of the Brits, of the English, and sort of revive and maintain that. So they have it on street signs. They have it. There's a Gaelic radio. So I'm going through the dial on a Gaelic radio. They have it on television, and these distilleries are putting using Gaelic words. Not that everybody's going to learn Gaelic from reading whiskey labels, but it's like a way of standing your ground. We're going to stand our ground, and we are not going to let this disappear. So, by the way, this whole language thing, if you study another example, and I could go on and on about this, here in the United States, right? You have the Native Americans, falsely named Indians, that are Inuits, depending on what term you want to use. When they would, not all of them, but a lot of times when they become under the dominion of the Europeans coming over in what is now North America, United States, they would lose their language, they would lose their culture, they would lose their dance, they would lose their heritage. They would be forced to go to schools, and they would start losing their language, right? This pattern is global. It didn't just happen here in North America. It happened over in Ireland, it happened in Scotland, it happened over in Israel. You name a place. In the world where there's been this kind of warfare and taking dominion, this pattern of cultural dominion, of taking away the holidays, taking away their religion, taking away their festivals, taking away traditions, taking away their language, taking away even their genealogies. This is a global practice that's happened around the world. I can go on and on more about it and cite more references over in Asia, what is now South America, even among the tribes in South America, even among the native tribes here in North America, what they would do to each other. All right. So that is why these very difficult to pronounce words are on our Scottish whiskey labels, right? And this is probably the only place you're ever going to hear this, because a lot of my fellow whiskey tubers aren't that much interested in going that deep into it, which is fine. Not everybody's nerdy and geeky and whatever as I am. I understand that. So they have to learn all this stuff. It's just, I find it interesting. I find it fascinating. I find it interesting to find patterns, cultural patterns throughout history around the world that happen all over the place. Anyway, so now you know the rest of the story. Why does Bunnahabhain use Gaelic terms? Is it to confuse the Americans so we don't know how to pronounce the names of their whiskeys, right? I did one video where I made a joke that it was Gaelic, that it was Klingon, that it was actually the Tok Da or Ga, Tok Ga. I made a joke that it was actually Klingon. It's a joke, but the reality is this is actually about, at least in a small way, sustaining a part of their culture, their historical culture, just as in the BBC television station, the radio station, and so on and so forth. So if you ever go to Scotland and you're traveling around, know this is a remnant of their culture that they are sticking their feet in the ground on to try to maintain. All right. Wow. Will says, first video I've turned into, I'm an MB. Oh, Daniel referred him. Oh, Daniel. They say hi. Next time, see Daniel. But you just won a new follower. That info is great. Well, cool. So, Daniel Whittington, I'm assuming you're Daniel Whittington, and I, besides being aerodynamic, Daniel and I are very aerodynamic when it comes to hair. And then I'm caught up following them with the beard. I think we're both similar whiskey geeks. And I learned a lot from him, and I'm sure he probably picked up some stuff from me as well. But we have that sort of camaraderie there that get along really, really well. Welsh Carl, thank you much for tuning on. I think you forget what happened to Wales. Welsh, we could totally. See, I didn't forget. It's just I could go through country by country, and we could tell the same story over and over again. We could do it down in Australia. We could talk about the Aborigines in Australia. We talk about between Japan and China. Oh boy. We could go around the world, country by country, and find similar patterns of this happening over and over again. So Welsh, my great grandfather, back in the 1620s, left Wales to come here, right, to escape that. So yeah, I know about the Welsh as well. So yeah, you're absolutely right. All right. So an absolutely superb whiskey. So now you know why they call it, why they're using the Gaelic language. And I really appreciate that. I really like that. So, alrighty. I hope I didn't tune out. This is all the information you're going to get here that you're not going to get anywhere else. But this is kind of funny, but when I saw the standing stones, alien astronauts. All right, absolutely. It's all about the storytelling. So now you know. All right, let's go into our next quiz question. Hopefully I'll be pulling up the right one. All right. So this is Pete Quiz question number 9. The sharp edge of this tool is used to cut peat. Hopefully you can see that well. And if you're watching this on your cell phone, it might be difficult to see. Basically, it kind of looks like a long shovel, but the end part looks a little different. What is this tool called? What is this tool called? Excuse me. A, again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, tears gear. B, peat hoe. C, turf pick. Or D, shite digger. Of course, I might be mispronouncing some of this stuff. A, tears gear. B, peat hoe. I think a peat hoe might be someone who really likes peat, and they sell themselves out for B. C, turf pick. Or D, shite digger. Derek Beckman, thanks for tuning in. He says, peat hoe. Peat hoe. C, Will says, turf pick. Pete ho. And Nurse Dave's shaving room, thanks for tuning in. So you always got to throw in a little bit of humor, man. You can't be just sort of dry material. You got to put in something serious. Michael C 2019 says tears gear. All right. Dirty Dog is saying something which I have to get permission to show because I don't know something in there. Oh, it's because you have shite on your mind tonight. Well, I mean, look at Pete. Pete can look like shite. And if you ever taste it, I've tasted it, it kind of tastes like shite. So when I was over there, I actually tasted some Pete. Pat Kane says, I really want it to be D. And then Welsh Charles says D. All right, so here's the actual answer. There you go. The sharp edge of this tool is used to cut peat What is it called? It's called, I may be mispronouncing this because it's Gallic. See the theme here? Gallic terms. See, that's a running theme. In addition to talking about peat, we're learning a little bit of Gallic. So it's a Gallic name. Also, and here's some other spellings. Again, I don't know how you pronounce this. I'm sorry, I'm totally mispronouncing this. Toys Gian, is that Tears Gear or Tusker? So there's some other alternate words for that particular tool. And if you go over there and you're visiting a distillery and you go to Isla, maybe do something over with Lagavulin and they take you out into the peat bogs, I wouldn't expect you to remember this, but that's what it's called, and it's another Gallic term. All righty. I got another message. Cameron Youngstrom, thank you much for tuning in. Oh, he deleted it. Okay. There's a peat hoe sitting right next to me. Yeah, I might be a peat hoe myself. Jacob says, have you tried peaty water? Does it taste like shite? No, I haven't. I just, so in fact, I'll show you. I have where, oh, hold on. I actually have a piece of peat with me. Hold on, I'll be right back. This is from Lefroy. So I brought back a chunk of peat and I put it into a display case. And I'm not going to open this up. So I brought back some peat from Lefroy, put it into a Lefroy, you know, those souvenir glasses they give you. So that's actually a chunk of peat from Lefroy. And then behind it is a you can see that there's a coaster in there, a Lefroy coaster. And then this is for like if you have a signed baseball or something like that, you know, from baseball players. And it's funny because there's actually a little dip in the bottom of this, and the Glencairn fits in there perfectly. So that is an actual piece of peat from Lefroy, a little souvenir. Yeah, so I have a little piece of Scotland right here in my house. I tried bringing back some barley with the little sprouts. You know, I forget what the name of the little sprout is when they start sprouting when you're malting. But it turned to mold. Don't know why, it just did. It turned to mold, so I had to throw them out. Anyway, Ron Gurgley, I might probably mispronouncing your name. 60 Hertz, thank you much for tuning in. It says, the Frog water tastes like clean spring water. Ron says, hey, Eric, Happy New Year. I figured it was about A or D, but what a hell of an answer. So anyway, so thanks for tuning in, man. So how many people we got? We got 29 people in here. Cool. And by the way, if you're watching on the replay, thank you for watching on the replay. I don't know if Jason Whiskey Wise is still in, and he's probably up really, really late. He might have gone to bed. I don't know. All right, let's drink some water. All righty. Now I'm going to taste a little bit of the Ballechin, sort of do a comparison. Now, color-wise, they both look very, 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 very similar. Ooh. So, see, this has been open now for a couple of years, but even just putting it into the glass, it now smells different than before I had poured it. Derek Beckman, thank you much for tuning in. Derek says, got a bottle of Lefroy 10 cask strength for Christmas. It is hot. I love the Lefroy 10 cask strength. I have I have that one, and then I have a cask strength of the Cartridge Triple Wood. Absolutely fantastic whiskeys. Jacob H, thank you much for tuning in. So it is unrealistic that peaty water could add peaty flavor to the whiskey. Jacob, actually go back and watch 2 live streams ago. I actually showed a video clip, and we actually talked about this a couple of videos ago. The short answer is yeah, no. They would have to filter the water, among other things. But yeah, we actually went. Wow. So I'm getting much more on this. I'm getting a intense vanilla and like a cherry chocolate cream. I don't know how to say. Wow. 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 So right off, the Ballechin is sweeter. It is sweeter. Definitely sweeter. Wow. It has also had more time to open up. This is right here, whereas this is right here. Right now, of course, I'll come back a week from now. I might prefer the Bunnahabhain. But right now, in terms of the mood I'm in right now, I'm actually liking the Ballechin more. I'm liking the Ballechin more. Probably because I'm in the mood for just something a little sweet, something just a little bit sweet there. Right now, it's not coming across as savory. This is much more savory. This is sweeter. And it's probably just a matter of mood. But I'm liking right now, this is more of a preference thing than a qualitative thing. The Ballechin. Now, this could have been within my top 10 for 2020 because I did review it in 2020. However, I had actually reviewed a sample of it from a couple of years ago that I'd gotten from the Scotch for Dummies. And that's the only reason why, because the video's not up anymore because I deleted the video since I did a re-review. But since I was doing essentially a re-review and I'd already reviewed it before a couple of years ago, I didn't think it would be fair to put it in my list of top 10 for 2020. But that's the only reason why. Other than that, this definitely could have been within the top 10 for 2020 and potentially could have kicked out number 10. If you haven't seen my video already, check it out. Number 10, which was the Ardbeg Black, made number 10. Number 10. Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. All right. We got another quiz question to spark the conversation. Let's go into our next one. All righty. I wish hold on. Pete quiz question. This is number 10. Moine, and I've been told it's not Moine, but Moine is a Gaelic word for A, monk, B, smoke, C, peat, or D, buy me now. So Moine is Gaelic word for monk, for smoke, for peat, or D, buy me now. Derek Beckman says, going to go with B. Final answer. And Nurse Dave's Shaving Room says, well, since it's a peat question, either B or C. Michael C9 2019 says B. 60 Hertz says B. So is there anybody in the chat who knows French? Who knows French? All right, so I'm going to show you the answer. We'll bring on the answer. Ron Gurgley says, the wife says B, smoke. I got to go with her. Okay. Richard Maris. Okay. Okay, Richard. Okay, so Richard. Okay, I'm going to go. Here's the answer. The answer is peat or peated. Moine is Gaelic word for peat, which is C. There, Richard says moi. So if you so here's the thing is if you remove the accent mark from over the O, yeah, if you it's the answer is C, peat. If you remove the accent mark from over Moine, it becomes a French word that means monk. So when I Googled this word and I didn't have the accent mark on it, according to Google Translator, it means monk in French. But so that's why you have to have that little accent mark over the O so that you know it's a Gaelic word meaning peat and not the French word meaning monk. And I'm guessing that that's a coincidence. That same spelling of word, letters, but one has an accent mark and the other one doesn't. So I'm studying a lot of languages like that. In Hebrew, they have these little dots that they use. If the second letter in Hebrew, which is bait, if you put a dot in the middle, it's called a dagesh. It's a hard B. But if you don't have the Dagash in it, it's a V. V. So these little dots, accent marks, can change. Greek the same way. There's some Greek words. It's the same Greek word. Just change the little accent marks, and it changes the meaning of the word. Yeah, vowel points. Mike Ben. Yeah, vowel points. Anyway, yeah, because originally the Hebrew didn't have vowels. They were added later by the Masoretes. Nurse Dave Shamey says, anyone big enough Scotch nerd to learn Gaelic? I would, but I'm too old. At this point, hey, Doug Christoph, thank you much for the $10. Appreciate it. I should have some sort of bell. I got to put on my list. I need a bell, some sort of noisemaker. Here we go. Thank you very much. Teacher says, every time a Glencairn rings, a drunk gets his whiskey, gets his wings. Anyway, so thank you very much. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So in fact, tell you what, Doug, let me ask you a question. Do you have one of my coins? Do you have one of my challenge coins? Let me know. Man. It's almost as if savory, it's almost as if the Bunnahabhain is it before you eat whiskey. You know, you're gonna have some steak that night, and you're just gonna have a little, you want a little something before you eat dinner. I would go with the savory. No, I sure don't. Okay, Doug, send me your mailing address. No, send me your mailing address to. I know you didn't ask for this, but. Hold on, where's that? Okay. I should have this already set up to where I have to just hit a button. All right. Send your mailing address to that. Send your mailing address to my email, and I'm going to send you one of my coins. I'll send you one of my coins. And that's actually at a discount because I basically retail them at $10. So basically, you're paying for the postage. All right, and a little bit. Excuse me, just coughing here, a little dry throat. So I'll send you one of my coins. So send me your mailing address, and I'll get one of my coins out to you. Thank you very much. I know you're just doing a donation, but I thought, what the heck, I'll give you a coin. So I've been giving coins out once per video in live streams. I gave one last week, gave one the week before, gave one to the week before. Where can you buy one? If you want to buy one through PayPal, use that email address. Send me $20. Through PayPal, and then I'll mail you out one. I'll mail you out one through PayPal. I'd rather have you do it through PayPal than through this because YouTube takes a cut. YouTube, if you go through PayPal, then I'm gonna get the money. Eventually, I'm gonna get rid of PayPal. I'm gonna have a website. It's one of the goals for 2021. Have my own website, and then people can. I need a crew. People handle all this stuff. Wow. Well, so both, I would say you can get a sense there's a red wine going on there, particularly on the back end. The Bunnahabhain, in fact, if I were to go to head to head, maybe I'll do this again later. A better head to head with this is actually the Ardbeg Black. But the only problem is that'd be Islay whiskey against Islay whiskey. And that's not what I'm trying. I'm trying to do mainland peat versus Islay peat. And so that would be two Islas against each other. That would sort of defeat the purpose of what I'm trying to do here. So this one's savory, this one's sweet. Qualitatively, I would say they're on par with each other. They're both absolutely fantastic whiskeys. They both got plenty of depth of flavor. They have that really nice. They both have a savory amount going on there. There's more saltiness, but there is just a tinge of saltiness going on here with the Ballechin. The primary thing that sort of really jumps out is the sweetness of the Ballechin. I'm going to be back in 1 second. I got to turn the heater off. It's getting too dang warm in here. Hold on. I'll be right back. All right. I turned the heater on because it was cold Now it's getting too warm, so it'll take a minute for it to turn off. Now it's getting too dang warm. All right. What about Spey Fumer? I'm not from. What is Spey Fumer? Well, Fumer sounds like smoke. Fume, like French. Fume, F-U-M-E, with a little accent mark over the E. I don't know what Spey Fume is. I'll have to Google it later. Richard says, Old Baltruin in your honor, bottled down. So Richard just polished off a bottle of Old Baltruin. I really, really like that whiskey. I think it's got a great quality price ratio there. Now, one of the main things that I'm wanting to do throughout this, and it's difficult because unless the mainland distillery tells you where they're getting their peat from, they might be getting their peat from Islay. They might be getting the peated barley from Port Ellen. Don't know. And a lot of them don't reveal it. They don't tell you on the website. And I've sent a lot of these guys emails and I don't get a response. I think, in fact, I have a video coming out on Sunday. It's a review of the Ben Riach, the Ben Riach 10 peated. That review will come out on Sunday. But I say in the review, I think that is sort of a reflection of a classic Highland peat because they're using Highland peat. It's non-chill filtered, has no added coloring. I think it's really sort of the classic profile of what you would expect from a Highland peat. Problem is, some of the mainland distilleries, or even so the other islands, as on Skye, the Talisker, or Aletchik, they're using peat from Islay, and so you really don't get that distinction between a mainland and Islay. But tasted blind, going ahead. Would I be able to tell one of these is a mainland and the other one is an Islay? Hold on a second. Derek Beckman. Yeah, so I don't know if you were here earlier. I got this from Mark at Scotch for Dummies. That's where I got this from. I got two of these from. I went to a dinner. I mentioned it earlier in the live stream. Maybe I can't remember if you were tuned in or not. I flew back to Indiana. They had a Highland Park dinner at the restaurant where Sean is the manager. Although he started his own business now, and they gave me a sample to take home, and really, really liked it. And then I contacted Mark, and I ordered 2 bottles from the store, and then he shipped them out to me. He got them shipped out to me. So anyway, I don't necessarily know that the Bunnahabhain stands out as being distinctively Islay versus the Ballechin. They're both fantastic and stuff. I already said that, but they aren't necessarily screaming Islay or the mainland, which calls into question, I think, and more thought to do with this, terroir. It's a buzzword that's been thrown around a lot, particularly this past year, or the regions of Scotland. Is the regions more of history and tradition rather than a real sense of place as a distinction as to the styles of whiskeys? I'm leaning more towards traditionally these regions made their whiskeys this way, which is where they get the reputation from, rather than that sort of a natural reflection of their sense of place. So with the minor exception that if it has some oceanic influence, or if you're using Highland peat, actual Highland peat versus using Islay peat, that those things would make a distinction. Okay, where you're aging the casks, where you're aging the whiskeys, where do you have your casks, where you get the influence, and then what type of peat. However, there is a distillery. There's a distillery. Let's see if you guys can guess this. There is a distillery that the distillery and the warehouses are smack up against the water. Smack up against the water. I just test you, see if you guys know this. Against the Dornoch, I think it's called the Bay of Dornoch. Dornoch. and it's not Ballechin. It's not Ballechin, but not too far from Ballechin. There is a distillery, or the distillery and where they age their whiskeys. No, Oban is on. So Oban would be way on the other side of Scotland, on the south, a little bit more southwestern or western side. So the Bay of Dornoch is northeastern Scotland. I wish I had a map to bring you. I could show you. So the Bay of Dornoch. In fact, there's a Dornoch Castle, but I stayed there. Ballechin is in the area, and another distillery which ages all their whiskeys right up against the water, surrounded by all this water, and yet there's no salty character to their whiskeys. It's Glenmorangie. Glenmorangie. Yeah, Old Pulteney. Yes, Jacob, you're correct. Old Pulteney is further north. So Old Pulteney is further north from Ballechin, but you're going in the right direction. Old Pulteney used to be, Old Pulteney is in Wick. That used to be the most northern distillery until Wolfburn was founded. You're right, and you can get that sort of oceanic influence because you're right, it's smack dab up against the water there, and you do get this salty character in some of their whiskeys, and so seemingly have the oceanic influence. But Glenmorangie does not. Why? That's a question. That's a question. Now, there is a person who I can answer who would know. He worked for Glenmorangie, I think it was like 19 years, Vic Cameron. And in fact, I met him. He's teaching at the Edinburgh Whisky Academy. And I follow him. He was doing a lot of a whiskey advent calendar. So he was doing a whiskey advent calendar. I think his YouTube channel is called VC Services. He's not really a whiskey tuber. He just happens to have it, so he has a place to put his videos. So he's not like something he's like working really hard on. But you can watch him on Facebook. So Vic, VIC Cameron, Cameron. You can find him on Facebook. But for like 19 years or so, he worked for Glenmorangie. So I would like to have him on as a guest. And this is a question. I have other questions I want to ask him as well. I might try to see if I can get him on my next series after doing Highland Peated Whiskeys. It's going to be on sherry and sherry cask finished whiskeys or aged whiskeys. So I'll talk about sherry wines, and we'll get into wine production. And it'll be a lot of the same from the notes from the class that I taught down in Texas. And so I'll get him on, see if I can get him on as a guest. I know it'll be challenging because of the time difference, the 8-hour difference, but I'll see if I can get him on as a guest, and then I can ask him questions about this. 60 Hertz. Have you ever had a new make that was salty or briny? So I've had new make from, I'm trying to think. I've had new make. I have one here, actually. This is Annandale. I've had new make. This is from Annandale. This is a new make from Annandale, which is in the Lowlands. Roy Aquaviti and I went there together. I've had tasted new make, and from Scotland. I think I might have tasted it at Lefroy. I've tasted more bourbon new make than I have of Scotch new make. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think that's about it. I haven't had, so I've only been like 3 or 4 different distilleries have I had new make. But you're right. That's a good question. I don't ever recall any salty or briny note in any new make, but I wouldn't expect it because that's just coming through the still. So you would be picking up salty and briny characteristics, not from the new make, but from its time spent near the ocean in a cask. Theoretically, right? Theoretically. Cameron says salt shouldn't distill unless they are bumping liquid over it. Right. You're right. See, Cameron, you're right. Yeah. So it wouldn't be from the new make. It would be from, if it's possible, wherever the character is coming from, it would be from the aging. Jacob says Talisker is mostly aged on the mainland, yet these maritime notes. Don't know where how they do it. Be honest with you, I don't know either. Requires more empirical investigations. Both of these absolutely superb whiskeys. If you can get your hands on one of them, I highly recommend it. All righty. So we've been at this for an hour. I like to keep my live streams for a sense of those who watch on the replay, set it at an hour. I'm trying to do, because I quit doing live streams for a while. I had to kind of sort of rethink how to do live streams. And so one of the things about wanting to do live streams is do them in such a way that they're beneficial, not just when people first started doing live streams, it was just to hang out, drink, hang out, and chat, and Whether it wasn't with the mindset of creating content that was good to watch on the replay, and that's cool. That's fine. Just hanging out is cool. But I want to create content that is good to watch on the replay, so people who can watch it later, and hence the slides and go a little heavier on content in terms of learning stuff. So make it good. So if you happen to be watching this on the replay, if you haven't already, subscribe, like this video, and I want to thank everybody who has tuned in. And we will be live again, Lord willing, a week from now, 5 p.m. Pacific, a week from now. And alrighty, so let's head on out with a little bit of rock and roll, and hope you have an absolutely fantastic new year and the rest of the weekend. Cheers.